I'm Anne, obviously, Coach Anne here. I am here on the Sunshine Coast in BC, and Kieran is in LA, right? Basically LA.
Yes, I'm in LA.
Yeah.
Hi, everyone. Welcome.
Yes. Kieran, hi, Jill. So Kieran is a very great old friend of mine, and she's a wonderful general practitioner in California. And I knew she was the person to ask about this because she's very cool. And we got a lot of questions from clients and in the DMs and stuff about periods. And it's a concern that I hear a lot from coaching clients who are like, everything was going great, got my period, and then nutrition goes off the rails.
Right.
People don't feel like working out. Yeah. So Jill is asking, will this be recorded to watch later? Yes, this will live on here in the group, Jill. Okay, so we have some questions here that I'm going to ask Kieran, but again, if you guys have questions, please put them in the comments here so that we can try to get to your questions today. Kieran, was there anything else you wanted me to add, or you wanted to add before we start talking about period stuff?
No, but if you feel like in the middle of my conversation, there's something random that comes up, maybe we can do, like at the very end of the question, we can kind of scroll through and see if there's any related questions to my current answer. So it's easier for them to just ask me right away.
Okay, sounds good. So this was an interesting question. It didn't even occur to me, but one of the first questions is, what are the different phases of a menstrual cycle?
Yeah, so it's very common for women to not fully understand the menstrual cycles. I think they do a pretty mediocre job in high school of teaching us about menstruation. And let's be honest, in grade 7, we're not really paying attention. We're more giggling at some of the words and this and that. So this is a great question. So in general, there are 2 separate phases, the follicular phase, which begins with your menses. So day 1 is considered your day 1 of menstruation. Okay, so that with that begins the follicular phase. Then following that is the ovulatory phase, in which the egg is released. And then after the egg release is called the luteal phase. So in general, we have 2 phases, the follicular phase and the luteal phase. And they're both separated by the release of the egg. Okay. So the follicular phase, which is the pre-egg release, day 1 of that is your menses. So if I refer to the proliferative phase, I'm talking about the follicular phase. I'm going to try to keep it really in general, vague as possible. I can go into details, but I won't.
Yeah, you could. Don't do it.
So pre-egg, so we're going pre-egg and post-egg release, okay? And then in the middle, we have ovulation. So what we want to discuss here is that the hormone levels are generally low. So during your menstruation, hormone levels are generally low. Then when you hit the ovulatory phase, you'll have this boost of energy because, hey, we're getting ready to be fertilized in general. Like, you want to get that egg fertilized. We want to have sex and have babies, right? So naturally, your energy level will increase during that ovulatory phase. And then during the luteal phase, what happens is post-egg release, the body tries to build up the uterine lining in preparation for fertilization. So if you are having sex and you get pregnant and your egg gets fertilized, then that uterine lining is good to go. But if you don't get pregnant or the egg is not fertilized, then you prepare for a period, in which case your uterine lining will shed and you will hit day 1 again, and that will be your menses. So one thing to kind of notice or not notice any changes in your cervical fluid. So during the follicular phase, you might notice that the fluid, it may be absent because the hormone levels are kind of low. And during the ovulatory phase, leading up to ovulation, you might notice that your cervical fluid becomes kind of sticky, white, creamy. And then after ovulation, it becomes clear, slippery, kind of stretchy. And then leading up to your period, you'll know because it gets kind of sticky and dry. I know that's a little TMI, but for women, it's really empowering to know what's going on down there.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Honestly, I wish that I knew that when I was younger, because I always just thought like there was something wrong with me. Or even now I'm like, oh, I must just be like drinking too much, like eating too much yogurt or something. So that's super helpful actually.
Great.
Yeah.
So any questions regarding that from anyone?
Not in the chat, but I do have a question. So I feel like I know what you're going to say, but so then is tracking your, even if you're not trying to get pregnant, is tracking your cycle helpful, important?
Yes, helpful and important. So actually that's a great question because I use the app called Flow, FLO. And it's great because it lets me know kind of what phase I'm in, when I may be ovulating based on what my period dates have been. And it's great for you to fully understand how long your cycle might be, how many days you have your period, what has changed in the last year. You can see your trends. If you feel like your periods are getting longer or shorter or the cycle is prolonged. And it's a really good way of your doctor to know also what changes might be happening, especially if you're leading up to something like menopause or if you're trying to have a baby or avoid having a baby. So you can kind of work around that. So it's really helpful. Definitely recommend it.
Yeah, I love that. And so I know what's going to be relevant to these group members and our clients is how is this related to my cravings, my hormones, and my workouts?
Yes. So definitely let's talk about like what type of workouts you can do to kind of support the hormone levels. Your energy levels will change accordingly. And then also if you have premenstrual symptoms, you can support that as well. So we can discuss a little bit about my recommendations first, okay? So my overall recommendation for your period would be to, yes, it is safe to work out. In general, my suggestion would be to listen to your body. If you're feeling excessively tired, definitely take that rest day. My in general recommendation for anyone, period or no period, is some is better than none and more is better than some. And if you've done any workshops like this with me and Anne, I mentioned that every time. So some is better than none, more is better than some. But definitely if you need a rest day, take it because you got to listen to your body. Light movements would be the way to go. Endurance type exercises, something that will not create too much tension on your body, but will help release some of the endorphins, enkephalins. Those are your body's natural pain relievers and feel good neuropeptides. So you can help release those. Meditative walks, you really want to support your mental health here because your body is getting ready for a period or is going through a period. It's not an easy thing. You want to support your body, and there are nutritious ways to also do that as well. We can talk about that a little bit later.
Yeah, let's hold on. Let's hold on to that.
Okay. So overall, for the follicular phase, you might notice that you have lower stamina. So remember, this is pre-egg release. So I would opt out for something like light runs, hiking, yoga, things like that. During ovulation, when your energy levels are high, definitely go for that HIIT spinning type of, high energy. I'm feeling myself. I'm great. That type of workout. And then during the luteal phase, again, your body's preparing for a period or a pregnancy. So you kind of want to go towards things like Pilates or strength training and keep your strength up and your mobility up.
I love that.
Oh, one other thing though, there are some considerations. So if you are someone who suffers from things like endometriosis or uterine fibroids, I would kind of stay away from anything that causes stress in your body. So excessive high intensity running, I would kind of stay away from that during periods. I would cater more towards pelvic strength exercises and yoga movements that will kind of give you that stretch and relief from the pain.
Yes, I love that. And obviously I have recommendations for yoga stuff specific to periods, but that's like another conversation.
Yeah.
So what was I going to ask you? So I guess a question I have that I know my clients ask is, if there's a day to skip the workout, like what day of the cycle is it?
It depends, okay? So, but I'll use myself as an example. For me, my second day of my period is always draining and I always feel some cramping, okay? So on that day, I generally choose to rest, okay? But towards the end of the day, I know that the period cramping will go down. So I will choose to either go out for a walk or just some like light cycling, okay? If you had to pick, I would pick day 3, like after you've kind of gone through the pain and the, you know, because like when you're having cramping and stuff like that, you kind of want to support the body by releasing some of those feel-good hormones. And then once the period is kind of coming towards the end, you're going to feel very drained because you're losing iron, you're losing blood. So you're going to feel drained. I would opt to take that day off.
Got it. That makes sense. And then, yeah, as always, just honoring how you feel. Sounds like.
Right. Yeah. Listen to your body.
Yeah, I love that. We have other questions here too, but I want to ask about the cravings piece because again, that's a really popular question from my clients. Okay. And so like, why is that some of us, many of us, like, why do we have these cravings for certain things before or during our periods?
Okay. First of all, I'll say it's very common, guys. And it's very normal to feel that way. There's a few different causes depending on the body, right? So first thing, of course, after ovulation has occurred and your uterine lining is building, estrogen kind of picks up its pace, okay, to kind of help build that lining. So estrogen is an anabolic hormone. It requires energy. Okay, so it's going to be ramping up your resting metabolic rate. It actually increases by something like 2 to 10%. So you're actually going to be requiring more energy. Right. You get more hungry because you want more energy. It requires more calories to be able to do something like that. The other reason you might be feeling like that is not to be overlooked, low levels of serotonin and dopamine. This can trigger this want, needs, I need comfort, I need love, I need food. That's totally normal. Okay, and make sure you guys are honoring your cravings. You want to honor those cravings, but make sure you're choosing something kind of healthier. And the reason why I say this is if you're going to opt out for choosing a Snickers bar, for example, that energy is going to run out. And then after it runs out, you're going to feel crappy again. So I definitely recommend if you're craving carbs, go for the whole grain carbs, go for the lentils, go for the oats. And then sugar craving, something like fruits or even dark chocolate, that'll help release some of those natural feel-good hormones. And then smaller portions, if you feel like, yeah, I definitely need to have that Snickers bar, okay, maybe eat like a quarter of it. I know it's hard, guys, but definitely honor your body. You don't want it to feel like crap afterwards either. And then drink lots of water. Water will definitely help you out there. But yeah, mood changes are very common, both for reasons that you need more energy and also because your hormone levels are a little bit off. And then your gut is also tricky as well. It knows that if you give it some starchy carbs, it'll boost that serotonin. So it wants starchy carbs.
Interesting.
Oh, there is one consideration though. If you're craving weird things like ice or clay or dirt or things like paper, that is pica. So if you encounter cravings like that, then you may want to talk to your doctor to check your iron levels, because a lot of women that have very heavy periods tend to have iron deficiency as well.
Right. Yeah,
that's one of the symptoms of iron deficiency if you're wanting to eat some really bizarre things.
Oh, I have not heard that before. It's interesting. I love it. Okay, and then back to workout things. There was another question here. Should I work out if I have cramps or painful cramps?
Yeah. Okay, so again, with the exercise thing, you want to listen to your body. But let me explain to you how exercise can help you when you have heavy cramping, okay? So it's really natural for us to kind of reach for the Motrin or the ibuprofen when we're having cramps, but there is a way to release that natural pain relief, okay? So exercise is one of the best ways to do it. So let's actually go back and talk about why we have cramping, okay? So there's like changes in estrogen, serotonin, dopamine, so you'll have things like bloating, you'll have things like mood swings, you'll have fatigue, breast tenderness, this all kind of comes along with that territory, right? So when your uterine lining is breaking down, you'll notice, you won't notice, sorry. When your uterine lining is breaking down, it releases these inflammatory prostaglandins, which causes all the blood vessels to vasoconstrict, and then the uterine muscular layer actually contracts because it's trying to get rid of that lining, right? So what happens is that's why you feel the pain. So because of the muscle contraction, okay? That's why it kind of comes in waves. It comes and goes. So, and then some of those prostaglandins can leak into the bloodstream, and you'll have things like headaches, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, bloating. It's like, it's almost unfair that we have to go through this.
It sure is.
I'm going to give you guys a virtual hug. But exercise, again, it can help because it releases those neuropeptides like endorphins, enkephalins, dopamine. But there are other ways to do it. So if you are opting out for exercise, you can put on a funny movie because laughing helps. It can also release those feel-good hormones. Music, listening to music can do that. If it's PMS or during your menstruation, sex is not off the table. That's a good way to do it. You know me, I'm always an advocate for sexual activity. Certain foods like chocolate, acupuncture, and massage. So those are all your options if you choose not to exercise.
I love that. And is it true that most of those things are also like neurological distractions, you know, for your brain?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Especially the movies.
Especially the movie. Yeah. Yeah. I love
and the making out.
And making out. Yeah. I love that. And yeah, honestly, obviously I support massage, but massage is both like pain relief, feel good hormones, and neurological distraction, and then can literally like, you know, work on some of that muscle stuff. I just wanted to mention Michelle said in the comments about your thing about craving clay and stuff. She said she's anemic and she craves ice when it's low. Ice.
Yes, yeah, very common.
Yeah, interesting. Okay, what else do we have here? There's one, why do I crave junk food around my period days? We covered that, right? I think. Yeah. And then how does my nutrition affect my menstrual cycle? It's interesting. So it goes like both ways. We not only crave stuff because we have our period, but our nutrition affects our period. So tell us about that.
It can, but what I wanted to kind of get on with this answer is that how you can support your body during your period and before your period. So the idea here is that we want to provide our body with good fuel to avoid any unnecessary discomfort, right? So things like staying hydrated to avoid headaches, eating like water-rich foods if you choose not to drink a lot of water. I know some people don't enjoy it. Watermelon, cucumber, things like that. Keep your iron levels up with leafy greens. You can support any anti-inflammatory efforts with things like turmeric and ginger tea. Now, the thing I want to say, because it kind of bothers me sometimes, like, oh, I had a turmeric latte or something like that, and then I felt better. It's going to be a gradual thing, guys. It's not going to be magic, okay? It's not going to be like I have cramps and then I'm going to have turmeric and then it's going to go away. This has to be a gradual process. You have to build this kind of shield up in your body by consuming turmeric over time, okay?
Okay. Can I just interrupt you? Are you speaking specifically to turmeric or like supplementation in general or spices in general?
Any anti-inflammatory foods. Any anti-inflammatory foods, It's not a magic pill. It's definitely going to be over time. You're reducing inflammation over time, right? Especially if you have something like endometriosis or any inflammatory issues like that. It's going to be an over time thing. Okay. So things like ginger tea, turmeric, things like that. So omega-3 fatty acids, things like nuts. They're also a great source of magnesium, which is shown to reduce fatigue and cramping and things like that. Again, it's not going to be, I have blueberries today and I had nuts today, so I won't have cramping. It's not like that, guys. So this is a long-term effort for sure.
So it's basically like surprising to hear us say this, but like a generally healthy diet most of the time, all the time is probably a good idea.
Yes.
For these reasons?
Yes, for these reasons. Okay. Next on my list, I want to talk about fiber. So make sure that you are supporting your gut health with some good fiber. And if you're taking fiber, definitely make sure you're consuming proper amount of water, because then you will end up with another issue, and we want to avoid that as well.
Ooh.
Yogurt.
I have a question while we're talking about fiber. I this can't be just me because I've had girlfriends talk about it. Why do we sometimes have like crazy like amounts of poop during your period? What is with like poop in periods? Is that just because there's
really,
like
really that's
it,
really, really normal.
is it because my guess, my not a doctor guess is going to be because there's like uterine activity and there's like peristalsis down there, and then
that's definitely part of it. That's definitely part of it. I would chalk it up to estrogen if I could pick anything. It's definitely estrogen. Women out there that have been pregnant will also like notice all the crazy things that estrogen does around the body. But yeah, I'm not sure specifically, but if I had to guess, I would guess estrogen would be the culprit here. Your gut is really sensitive to hormones, and a lot of serotonin is actually created in your gut, and your gut bacteria is really sensitive to hormones as well. So it's not out of whack if you notice any constipation or diarrhea or bowel changes around your period. Definitely hormone related.
Yeah. Got it. Thank you. Okay, so sorry,
speaking of bacteria in general, you want to support your vaginal flora, because around your period, you're kind of introducing things either in or around your vagina. So yogurt is a great way to support the yeast in your vagina. I know I may have mentioned this before, but kind of try to stay away from douching. You don't want to introduce anything kind of in that will adjust the pH of your vaginal pH. You want to support that bacteria. I know that seems really counterculture a little bit, because we're like, we got to keep it clean and tidy and smelling good and perfumes and this and that. You guys, don't do it. We see yeast infections a lot.
Don't order those like goop perfumed balls to put inside of yourself. Is that what you're saying?
Scented pads, scented anything. Try to avoid that. It's going to disrupt the pH of your vagina, and you will be creating more issues. You'll get itching, burning, all sorts of issues like that. But if you are experiencing that, definitely bring it up to your doctor to help you.
Thank you.
So speaking of the dopamine and serotonin levels that are kind of disrupted in your body, you want to support that by introducing B6, vitamin B6, which will help build those neurotransmitters. So I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, but in general, I would say like eat bananas and peanuts, just anything to kind of keep like a whole food diet. Okay. And we go through this every time that we want to keep it and you guys, you don't have to keep it fancy. Keep it really, really simple. Pick those 5 fruits and 5 vegetables that you love and eat them over and over again. Try a different sauce, try some different seasonings. That's the best way to go. To me, like consistency and keeping it simple is the best. Now, things to stay away from during your period, which is also important as what you want to eat. Too much salt, okay? Too much salt, because estrogen, again, it will cause an influx of water retention. So a lot of women will experience bloating during their periods or even before their periods. So you want to stay away from salt. You want to stay away from too much sugar, because you experience that sugar crash, especially if you're a moody person. You definitely want to stay away from that sugar. Coffee, and I love coffee. I have coffee every day, so I may not always abide by this, but if you're someone who gets headaches, and you're just feeling like low energy, stay away from that coffee. It can decrease that water retention and avoid those headaches.
Yes, thank you. Okay, and there's no other, like, I want to respect your time and everyone's time, so there's no other real like fitness or nutrition questions. So if you guys have any other questions, please put them in the chat here or in the comments right now, and we can always answer them with text later. But there was, Michelle has been here the whole time and asked about uterine ablation. Is there anything like quick you could kind of say? She basically just said like, what do you think of it? What is it?
Okay. So uterine ablation is generally recommended if you're having issues like endometriosis, and keep in mind, I'm not an OBGYN, so this is definitely not my main field. And uterine ablation will actually burn off a layer of the uterine lining, so that way it can decrease the pain, or it can decrease the amount of period you have. So it'll decrease the level of uterine lining that will build up on your next period. I would definitely speak to your doctor about it, because there are certain side effects that you need to know about in terms of that procedure. It's not always recommended, but it might be like a last case scenario.
Got it. It sounds painful.
Well, we don't really have like very many pain receptors down there other than the muscular layer, so it won't be.
Okay.
Unless you, because it depends on, like, if you're having a really heavy period, then it'll help kind of decrease that uterine lining, so the next time you won't build up as much. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah, it does for sure. Okay, thank you. I hope so. Michelle, let us know if that answered your question. And then was there anything else like really you wanted to throw in there, Kitty? I think the biggest things that, I wanted to ask again about those cravings that we hear about, and then like just not feeling like exercising. And I think you answered both, like all those things really clearly. Was there anything else you wanted to mention?
Something that we encounter, not commonly, but sometimes, is that if someone introduces moderate or consistent exercise, they do tend to notice changes in their period, either by flow or their cycle. So just know that if you are starting to exercise regularly and you notice that your cycle has decreased, that's completely normal. Because again, generally your estrogen and your progesterone is what determines how thick your uterine lining will be. And your estrogen comes from the adipose tissue, or the fat stores in your body. So when you're decreasing your fat stores, you will notice that your estrogen levels will go down and you'll have a lighter period. That could also go the opposite way. So if you are gaining weight or you're gaining fat stores, you'll notice that you might have heavier periods. So that's something to look out for. Now, if you have really, really low fat stores, things that you only see in like really extreme athletes or ballerinas or someone who has eating disorders, they can actually diminish their estrogen levels to a point where they don't have a period at all. So if you're noticing that you have dropped a significant amount of weight, your periods are diminishing and now they have disappeared, I would definitely try to up your calories and speak to your doctor so they can recommend anything and check your hormone levels.
Yeah, I think that's an important question too around fitness. So thank you for answering that. Thanks, Dr. Karen. And then where are you active as a doctor on social media, or do you do any other stuff? Where can people find you?
Yes, so you could find me on Instagram. I'm not always on Facebook. I do check maybe once a week or twice a week. If Anne messages me. Actually, I think you're the only person I come on for, to be honest. Definitely Instagram. So Anne will share my Instagram handle. You guys can message me on there. You can send me emails if you have any further questions. I won't be able to give you medical advice, but I can give you medical knowledge. Okay, so I can give you medical knowledge, just not advice.
I love that. And do you still have a podcast?
I do have a podcast. It's a mental health podcast. I haven't put out any episodes recently, but yeah, I do. You can find all my information for my podcast on my Instagram page.
Okay, awesome. I will. Oh, hi, honey.
Hi, Bobby.
Hi, baby. I'll share. Come here, babe. I'll share Kieran's Instagram, and if you guys have any other questions, just put them in the comments here, and we can answer them via text. Thank you so much, Kieran, for doing this. I know you're really busy.
Thanks for having me, Anne.
So,
and thanks, guys, for joining us.
Yes, and thank you, everyone, for coming. Say bye-bye. Bye. Bye. Thanks, Kieran. Bye, guys.